And joining us from Zagreb, she chairs the European Parliament's delegation for Iran, German Green member of the European Parliament, Hannah Neumann. Thank you for being with us here on France 24.
Good evening.
We wake up here in Paris to news that the U.S. has extended a ceasefire, and then the tension seems to rise, and so does the price of oil. First, let me begin with asking you this U.S. explanation that they see divisions within the Iranian leadership. Does that hold water?
Well, I'm afraid we have to get used to waking up to confusing news from the US. I guess most of us have already. The main problem seems to be that there is a total unclarity what these negotiations are about. Are they only about the Strait of Hormuz? Are they about the nuclear program? Are they also about something like regime change? It has been going back and forth for days, if not for weeks, and that is, I think, the main problem. Whether there are divisions within the Iranians, well, we clearly see divisions on the American side, but it seems to me that the main problem is that they don't even have a clear focus what they are negotiating about right now.
And your panel, have you been in touch with people from the regime?
Well, I mean, of course, we also get the messages that the regime is sending out. They are very active on the internet. They have all their Twitter channels. But what we're also trying to get in touch with, and that is sadly the dimension that is mostly left out in these negotiations, is the people in Iran that are opposing this regime. Nobody is talking anymore about the people in Iran, and they can't communicate to the world because they are on a digital blackout. So I'm mainly trying to be in touch with them to hear what is important for them. And they see themselves totally neglected in these negotiations. Not even the Americans are talking anymore about stopping the executions, releasing the prisoners, or working on a transition where people can then decide how and by whom they want to be governed.
Hannah Neumann, there's a follow-up to a sort of coalition of the willing meeting that happened last Friday, where Europeans are trying to work together with other allies on what to do with the Strait of Hormuz if the fighting stops for good. What should be the role at that point of a country like Germany? What should they be doing?
I mean, first of all, I think everybody's quite happy that the French and the British initiatives have joined forces. That is what we have seen in the meeting in Paris. And that both leaders are trying to get the EU, the E3, Europe somehow back into the game. I think it is crucial when there is a ceasefire. Sadly, we are far from having a ceasefire, as also your colleague from Washington has just reported. When there is a ceasefire, we need to make sure that people, especially the big shipping companies, gain confidence that they can use the Strait of Hormuz again, and even manned it under a European flag or under some other international context comes together, well, then of course Germany also has to see what capabilities we have. We have experience with demining, for example, and how that can be used in a useful way. The problem is we are far from discussing all these concrete matters because we don't even have a ceasefire yet. We don't even know what the agreement will be on how the Strait of Hormuz can be or cannot be shipped.
Then there's the question of energy insecurity. It's 1/5 of the world's oil and gas that flows through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, there is a smudging of good news this Wednesday. The news coming from the European foreign ministers meeting ahead of an informal summit. This after Hungary dropped its objection to a 90 billion euro lifeline for Ukraine. Let's take a listen to the European Commissioner for Enlargement, Marta Koss.
These days are good days for good news for the EU-Ukrainian relations, and I'm very happy about this. The oil is flowing in the Druzhba pipeline. This means that probably or for sure we will be able to release the 90 billion loan, which is very, very important.
Now, all this made possible by the fact that this very day the Ukrainians started again the oil flowing through that Druzhba pipeline, which had been damaged. First off, your reaction to the fact that now that financial lifeline is going in one direction and the Russian oil going in the other.
Well, this whole example shows how interconnected these different conflicts are and how absurd the situation somehow is. First of all, it is really good news that the financial support to Ukraine is finally flowing again, and that these 90 billion have been cleared. At the same time, I mean, now the Russian oil going into Hungary means that the European Union somehow also supports the Russian war economy. And we see how fragile we are in terms of our economy by just blocking the Strait of Hormuz, how much of a turmoil that means for every citizen when they just go and want to put gasoline in their car, but also for our industries. So while we need to mitigate the consequences in the medium term, on the long run, we really need to invest in renewable energy to make us independent from this kind of geopolitical situations, where at the moment we are super vulnerable and super dependent. So Europe will only be free in making its political decisions when we are fossil free. And I hope, aside of the short-term mitigation, like we're discussing excess benefit taxes, you know, that we're discussing subsidies to energy prices, we really need to make stronger our energy transition so that we will become independent from gas and oil from all these weird autocratic war-driving regimes.
Yeah, just for the emergency at hand, if you will. Are you in favor of lowering taxes on gasoline at the pump?
I think the crucial thing is that we work with an excess benefit tax, because that's what we see in Germany. These gasoline companies are actually making additional benefits harming the citizens with just making additional benefits, making additional money. That is the first thing we have to do. Then we have to see how we can reduce consumption. I would rather say let's make the public transport free for everyone rather than making gasoline cheaper. But this is a discussion we're all having in Europe at the moment.
Now, it's not all good news when it comes to the Druzhba pipeline. While there's been the reopening in the direction of Hungary and Slovakia, the Kremlin announcing that it's from May the 1st no longer going to allow shipments of oil from Kazakhstan to Germany. The Russian deputy prime minister citing, quote, technical possibilities. Let's take a listen to Alexander Novak.
We had talks about this last week with our Kazakh partners. The Germans have given up on Russian oil, so they're doing fine.
What is that all about, Hannah Neumann?
Well, it's this total mess because these war-driving authoritarian regimes can basically blackmail us with their fossil energy. And this is why, I say it again, for Europe to be free, we need to become fossil-free. And we need to mitigate the problem right now, but before all, we really need to work on energy independence. There's no way around that, because otherwise we continue to be stuck in this nightmare after nightmare of blackmailing. So really, let's invest in solar, let's invest in wind. It is doable, it is cheap. I don't get why we are not putting this up front and center. We should have done that 5 years ago when the Russian invasion started.
Is this a small problem or a big problem? I'm reading that there's a major oil refinery in the Brandenburg region, and it gets 17%, 17, of its oil from Kazakhstan through that Druzhba pipeline. Is it easy to make up, or is the German capital in trouble?
Well, it's not going to be super easy, but part of the truth is also that we have, for the last 4 years, been working on reducing our dependency on Russian gas and oil, and there's a plan in the European Union for a total phase out at the end of next year. So we are working on that already, and now we need to step up to mitigate. It's not going to be easy, but it's doable, and it has to be doable. There's just no way around that.
Hannah Neumann, you're in the Balkans right now. We've seen that the last couple of weeks, for those who have a pro-federalist Europe vibe, there's been good news and bad news. Viktor Orban beaten at the ballot box, but then we saw elections in Bulgaria this Sunday where a more pro-Putin not elections, but yeah, but the former president, more pro-Putin, was the winner. He's going to have an outright majority. And now in nearby Slovenia, a pro-Trump former leader could be back. So my question is, which way is the pendulum swinging right now inside of the EU?
Well, our biggest headache for more than a decade has been Viktor Orban, who has more and more drastically and dramatically pivoted towards Russia. His ministers have apparently even informed the Russians out of council meetings, which is a situation that is really unheard of before. So the big news and the most important news is that Viktor Orban has been replaced by Peter Magyar, who also has a two-thirds majority, so he can really work on bringing Hungary back to be a full-blown democracy and bring it back to the heart of Europe. And I think that's going to be good for the Hungarian people, but it will also be very good for the European Union. And we saw that today with unfreezing the 90 billion for Ukraine, how big of a steps this will allow us. With the situation in Bulgaria and Slovenia, I would say we will have to see where these new governments turn. In Bulgaria, for example, the new leader is said to be pro-Russian, but he also campaigned on a pro-European stance. So we will have to see how that pans out. And also in Slovenia, these countries are comparably small. And we have seen in the past that some small countries sided with Orban, but they rarely really spearheaded basically a brutal blockade in Brussels, because in the end, they know when it comes to aggression from Russia, but also when it comes to the economic future, they depend on the European Union because we all depend on each other and together we are stronger. And that is especially important for the small ones. So let's just see where this is going. The big news, and I think that's where the pendulum swings at the moment, is a stronger Europe. And also, I mean, people have just proven, even after an authoritarian shift that we clearly have seen in Hungary, change is possible again.
Hannah Neumann, so many thanks for joining us from Zagreb.
Thanks to you.